the Christmas present they have for Trump, he's expecting a letter exonerating him, and what he'll get instead, it potentially is the bogus indictment of a member of his own family. Yeah,
on inchoate crimes.
And it's going to be that betrayal. They think he's going to blow up and get mad, fire Mueller, when the answer is let that crook and all of them sink when they actually try to sell all these lies right as America turns against him. Roger Stone's riding shotgun with me. Doug Hagmann of the Hagmann Report is going to be joining us with his great intelligence network and a law enforcement background. Roger, you asked me a great question during that short break. Go ahead and ask it again.
Yeah, what is the rationale for moving UN troops to the streets of Chicago? Is it because of the gun violence and the collapse of society? The president's right. Somebody is killed every 3 hours in Chicago today.
Well, that's how it works. They refuse the National Guard there. They create a place where they've taken the guns. The corrupt groups are shipping the drugs in. It's kind of a safe zone for criminals to operate. So you let it get as bad as possible, and then you call in the UN to do gun sweeps, and then that sets the precedent for the UN to go into Western countries and do what it's done all over the world and has always been a goal. And so you have Loretta Lynch last year with her Strong Cities initiative, demonizing police, saying we need the UN to codify local government and come in and oversee the police, basically with federal control backing the UN. So it sounds insane, sounded insane to me, but they actually called for it. And so what's happened is their old plans, even though Trump's in place, they don't care. They're going ahead with a plan they already had set up years ago. This is just like in the EU where they march in EU troops now unannounced. They go, what's this? Well, we're EU troops. We heard you want to leave. So it's the same thing. Our government has sold us out to multinationals. Trump's gone in, but he's only a beachhead. And then you read in Bloomberg, yeah, the bureaucrats are all ignoring him. They're all spying on him. They're all lying. You know, we're the resistance. We're going to remove him. We're going to kill him. I go, hey, they say they're going to kill him. And then they put out fake headlines in Media Matters. Jones says the FBI is going to kill him. I didn't say that. I said the globalists that say they're getting ready to kill him, Phil Mudd on CNN, the congressmen that have told you they're getting ready to take out Trump, that they've been told that, they're building this confidence game with their own people in government to hang on. We'll suppress the economy, and we'll get those bitter clinger guns, and we'll have control. Just hang on.
That's why you had Congressman Jackie Speier yesterday saying, the rumor is everywhere that Trump is going to fire Mueller. We're hearing it all over Capitol Hill. That's because they started the rumor. The rumor is meant to destabilize Trump. He came out immediately and said, no, I have no plans to do that. But
that's right. They say the cue to riot is when Trump fires him. Trump doesn't do it because the wheels have come off and it's proven fraud. Don't interrupt your enemy when they're destroying yourself, as you said. And so then they come in to have a simulation as if he did to then cover up the fact that they've been caught red-handed manufacturing.
I think that's exactly right.
Again, Roger Stone's riding shotgun with me. We have Mr. Hagmann joining us. I'm not going to go into his whole bio or all the different law enforcement groups that he trains with his group, but it's great to have him with us. Doug, give us the intel report from all your sources that are always way ahead of, it seems, everybody else.
Hi, Alex. Mr. Stone, good to be with you. Yeah, right now, here's what we're seeing. I've got investigators that have infiltrated the on-the-ground groups from San Francisco to New York City. We're seeing a lot of activity there, but more importantly, what we're seeing are the members of the permanent state, the shadow government, if you will, the permanent bureaucracy meeting on a weekly basis outside of Washington D.C., making plans on how to overthrow. Or I shouldn't say overthrow, how to obstruct the forward movement of Donald Trump's agenda. And in doing that, as part of that, we're also getting information about who's in the crosshairs. And I've heard your name come up. I've heard Mr. Stone's name come up. I've heard other big Breitbart members of Breitbart and other people come up as to what they plan on doing in terms of shutting off their communications and lifelines.
And
that's where we're at.
And now they're in the news again saying they're getting ready to make the push. But when we report on it, they say we're insane and it doesn't exist. What is the tactic there?
Well, and it's look, if it doesn't happen right away when we say it's going to happen, or if it 4 years ago, 2013, I reported on this, and I reported on the structure, the infrastructure that was being put and being built to carry this out. And we had thought it was going to be, what we're seeing today was going to happen long before today. It didn't. But we're seeing the fruits of that labor back then happen today. And it's just if you can't, in today's world, if you can't see it, if it doesn't happen right away, if you say it's going to happen and a month or a week goes by and nothing happens, well, then you're a liar, or you're it's all hype, it's all hyperbole.
Exactly. Well, it's a classic thing. It's a military tactic from World War I, where they would through bullhorns say we're not attacking. We're not assaulting. As they were bayoneting people, they found with at least enough people, it creates hesitation so people don't go into battle mode, so we don't get ready. They just say nothing's happening while they announce to their own people, we're going to take over, we're going to kill, we're going to burn, we're going to slaughter, we're going to get everybody, we're going to lock up all the conservatives, we're going to, but then, oh, we're not doing that, you're crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what we need to be, at least in my view, and based on all of the information I've gotten from my investigative staff and the volunteers who were out there in the meetings or watching the meetings, is this. We have to be prepared, I think, for anything to go, I hate to use this phrase, but for things to go live, I suppose. But that's the only way I know how to describe it. For things to go from a hypothetical arrangement or something that we would think is, being planned for the future, that could happen at any time. And a lot of this is contingent, based on everything I've been told about the Mueller probe, how well this fares out. They're getting a lot of pushback internally. The GSA, of course, just turned over 13 devices and documents when in fact they had no legal basis to do so. We're seeing a lot of lawlessness take place within the Mueller, the Mueller investigation.
The Clinton penetration of the FBI, the Clinton criminal operation inside the FBI, that's what it is.
Exactly. So the more that's exposed, and this is my my reasoned analysis, the more that is exposed, and the bigger, the longer, and faster and harder we push against this, the more. The bigger the pushback against us will be, against the mainstream media, against the alternative new media, honest media will be. And
exactly.
I think
that's why we see the censorship converging, the propaganda converging, and now that the Mueller thing is in trouble, they meant to launch it this December, as Congress and others told you, as they now admit, that's falling apart, but they still are so arrogant, even though every one of their other operations is blown up in their face, from stealing the election to you name it, they are still intending to go ahead with this, it looks like.
Well,
yeah, of course.
And it's why they are so apoplectic about the new net neutrality rules, because it's rolling back one of their major initiatives to control that channel of communications. Trump is reversing one of their greatest weapons. That's why you have this giant disinformation campaign. It's going to cost more. You're going to be censored. This is all nonsense. It's all disinformation.
Net neutrality, what a poor name for that particular order, law, whatever it was.
They named it what they were getting rid of. We pretty much had it before. Obama was getting rid of it. Sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't broke before, don't fix it now. So when you hear the net neutrality being removed, of course, people have the worst thoughts, but they don't bother to read beyond the 144, 200.
That's right. The net neutrality was the rollout legalese to back the internet control switch.
And they say crazy things like, every Google search you do is going to cost $5. My own grandson told me that. It's complete nonsense. It's disinformation.
Yeah, and they call us. I mean, who's gullible enough to believe that? Especially, apparently, a lot of people are. But you're right. So I think now is kind of the crunch time. At least this is what I'm getting right now. It's crunch time right now. So between now and I'm going to say the first week of January, second week of January, I would anything could happen. The way they're going at this.
That's right, Doug Hagmann, totally on target. It's like they're getting a World War I or World War II. Armies are lined up. They're sharpening their bayonets. They're loading their field artillery. I mean, this is serious.
I've never seen it worse. And I've got a couple of contacts inside the Beltway, and they say, look, we just don't know what's going to happen, but we know something is.
Stay there. Doug Hagmann. People can follow all of his great work at HagmannReport.com. We'll be back, and Roger Stone's riding shotgun with us. Folks, we're not hyping this. This is the reality. But if we stand against it, recognize it, raise the alarm, they may back off, or we'll at least be ready for them when they come. If we go to sleep, it's going to happen for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Jones here, back live, broadcasting worldwide with Roger Stone, riding shotgun, former head of the Trump campaign, longtime confidant. Doug Hagmann, law enforcement trainer, one of the top private investigator firms on the East Coast with amazing connections inside the Patriot element of the FBI and more. And Doug, you were about to get to your sources inside the federal government and what they tell you is happening and how serious this is. It's now come out in the news that Eric Prince and others have private security around the president. We knew that a long time ago. And that they are expecting a rogue CIA coup at any moment. But Roger, you said you know how it's going to go down. Tell us that, and then we'll go back to Doug Hagmann.
Here's what I believe. General Flynn has pled guilty because he's going to point to someone. The supposition is that he would incriminate the president and say that the president directed him to call a meeting through the Russian ambassador. I believe it is more likely that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is the one who directed General Flynn to make that call. The underlying call is perfectly legal. It's within the purview of their job. But remember, Kushner has been under hours of interrogation by the FBI, by the House committee, by the Senate committee.
And one contradiction, one half-forgotten thing is the process crime of lying to the FBI.
So, and I think that people know that Donald Trump is not going to let Ivanka's husband go to prison on some trumped-up process crime. So he is likely to pardon him. I think he held the door open to pardon Flynn, and they are hoping that the pardon of Flynn and Kushner, conceivably, would spark their revolution.
All right, let's give Doug Hagmann, who's been joining us, the floor, because he's always polite and pauses, to really flesh out his intel from his federal sources and other key areas.
Well, if I can ask both you and Roger a question, because one of the areas that I've got kind of a black hole about is what happened at the latest when Donald when Jared Kushner, I'm sorry, when Donald Trump Jr. or was it Jared Kushner?
Both of them have recently testified, but it was Donald Trump Jr.
All right. What happened during that Senate Intelligence Committee meeting that was behind closed doors? I don't have any information that I can authenticate about that, but it does, except to say it goes back to, okay, it would be to Jared Kushner and then to the president, basically using them as a means to get to the president, of course, forcing Donald Trump's hand to pardon either one or both.
Sure, they're just trying to get to somebody that Trump cares about.
Well, and it would just bring the whole investigation one step closer to the president, because Mueller doesn't indict Kushner and then close down his investigation. He conceivably indicts Kushner for perjury, let's say, or for lying to the FBI, and then his investigation goes forward, getting closer and closer to the president. I think that's the game plan.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, these are investigators looking at people trying to find a crime and then show the cover-up. But there's no crime. I mean, it's crazy from what I've been able to determine. All of these, I mean, this is an abusive process. An abusive process.
I think you're absolutely right. But right now, just as Washington, is always swept with rumors, the rumor is that there's a shock and awe moment for the president, planned by Mueller, most likely right after the first of the year or just before Christmas. Many people believe that would be the indictment of Jared Kushner for some process-related crime regarding the Flynn phone call to the
Sure, and then that derails the recovery, everything, and then they're not going to just let Trump be pushed out. They're going to go after everybody, shut down the free press. They've called for massive arrest. I mean, they're going to go authoritarian is their decision now. This is a true criminal group. Other key pieces of intel your sources have given you, Doug Hagmann?
Well, this kind of circles back around to what you were talking about earlier. In conjunction with everything, there is a plan to bring back, of course, under that pretext of the Strong Cities Network, the Obama administration, UN, to announce the UN peacekeeping force in Chicago, and of course the top cop, UN has no jurisdiction there. We're seeing this, or we're hearing this play out a little bit in the preparations made for the expectation of violence on the streets because of the embedded nature of the pro-Trump people, and then they feel that they've got to put down this fake uprising or this non-existent uprising by the Trump people, when in fact that's the pretext they're using to bring
and this
in
is what the EU does. When a country tries to get out, they send in bureaucrats and forces and then even military. And now we're being treated like that with Democrat-run cities that are just like sanctuary cities for illegals. They're saying, we'll go one further. We'll bring in UN troops.
What's That's most interesting is that the government's, or I should say, their abuse of their surveillance authority is beyond anything we have ever seen. They were using the trumped-up FISA warrants to spy on 30,000 Americans in a simple act of political espionage. That's their rationale. And this includes the spying on Trump Tower, the spying on Paul Manafort, on most likely...
It shows they're going completely for broke. They're lawless. Again, Doug, getting back to what you said briefly before the break, but you got cut off. You were saying that your sources inside federal law enforcement basically have never seen anything like it, and they were saying this is maximum danger. You were saying they agree that there's an attempt to really take over here.
Yes, I think this kind of goes exactly to what Roger Stone had said, that there's this Christmas present awaiting Donald Trump, or this present awaiting Donald Trump. And I think when they spring that, I mean, that's what everyone is kind of holding their breath about. There's a lot of water cooler talk by the patriots in Washington and inside the Beltway about something taking place that's going to rock the foundations of this nation, and it's really an us versus them mentality. Now, that's not necessarily among the general rank and file of the FBI or even within the Department of Justice, among scattered about the special or the resident offices of the FBI or the U.S. attorneys. This is inside the bureaucratic areas of Washington, D.C. So this is what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing that they are preparing for some sort of event to take place. When I say event, it could be a series of events. It could be tied to the Mueller investigation. I'm not sure, because no one really, I think, really has got a good handle.
Well, don't they understand they're not going to hit everybody flat-footed if they try some hot coup, and that it's going to be spectacular? I
don't think they care. They don't care. Seriously, at this point, they feel that they're so far back behind the eight ball with the Donald Trump presidency. Again, this is what I'm hearing. These are not my words. They just feel that they've lost enough time and they're getting enough hassle where they've got to do something now. They feel the need to do something right now, if that makes sense.
Just absolute cornered rats. It makes total sense.
Something you just said, it makes perfect sense. Look at it in context. The Christmas present they have for Trump, he's expecting a letter exonerating him, and what he'll get instead, it potentially, is the bogus indictment of a member of his own family. Yeah,
on inchoate crimes.
And it's going to be that betrayal. They think he's going to blow up and get mad, fire Mueller, when the answer is let that crook and all of them sink when they actually try to sell all these lies, right as America turns against them. Doug Hagmann, thank you so much. Roger Stone, thank you so much. We've got Joel Skousen coming up.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Mr. Armstrong, you'd mentioned in your answer to, I think, Ms. Spears' question, that there are other RTs operating in the U.S. Can you describe them, list them?
Sure, thank you. So you have RT, you have Sputnik, you have Ruppli, and then I think you have them feeding other entities. Infowars comes to mind, where those are echo chambers.
Dr. Comey, are you aware that Roger Stone played a role in the Trump campaign? I'm not going to talk about any particular person here today, Mr. Schiff.
This bizarre circular thing happening where the president cites a theory that he was wiretapped, which developed on the kind of fringe right-wing media. And then after his tweet storm, Infowar then started saying, well, look, it was the New York Times that reported it, citing our story, misreading our story. And now, a few weeks later, the White House and the president are citing Infowars.
Are you aware that Mr. Stone also stated publicly that he was in direct communication with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
Same answer.
We're going to start shutting Alex Jones and others down, and we're going to sue them, and we're going to have the Justice Department come after them. And get this, folks, if they can shut us down, you're next.
You know, I think it's really important as we sit here that we explain this to the American people in a way that they can understand it.
We are at war with Russia.
So would you say that Russia engaged in hybrid warfare in its effort to undermine our democratic process and engage in our electoral process? Director Comey?
They engaged in a multifaceted campaign of active measures to undermine our democracy and hurt one of the candidates and hope to help one of the other candidates.
I actually think that their engagement was an act of war.
You said we were attacked by Russia. That's not a small thing.
Yes.
An attack doesn't just invite a counterattack, it demands one, else you reveal your fundamental weakness and get attacked again.
Never in the history of our elections has a country attacked us the way that Russia has.
I think before government officials change our foreign policy and declare war against a sovereign country, as you all are attempting to do, we, citizens, have a right to know on what basis you're doing that.
If there is objection, and I note the senator from Kentucky on the floor, I will say before I read this, if there is objection, you are achieving the objectives of Vladimir Putin. You're achieving the objectives of trying to dismember this small country that has already been the subject of attempted coup. If they object, they are now carrying out the desires and ambitions of Vladimir Putin, and I do not say that lightly.
Senator from Kentucky.
I object.
Objection is heard.
The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin.
You're carrying water for the Kremlin.
I'm not carrying water for the... You're a sitting member of Congress on the Intel Committee, and you can't say they hacked...
You're gonna have to move your show to RT Russian television because
you know what?
This
That's
is perfect.
Just so
this is
beneath your
placed.
office because it's so dumb and you're being duplicitous. I'm asking you, did they hack Podesta's emails? And you can't say it.
Personal insults like that, Tucker.
You just said I was carrying... You said I was carrying water for Putin.
Russian scum!
Our battleships weren't sunk and our towers didn't collapse a la 2011. But make no mistake, 2016 is a year that we should mark on our calendars. And it's still going on. The attack didn't end on Election Day.
Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase from another December long ago, will live in infamy.
If we discover that Donald Trump or his advocates played a role in helping to devise strategy, if they're the ones who came up with crooked Hillary, if they're the ones who came up with she's ill, something's wrong with her energy, and the way that he basically, described her in the campaign, I think that is something that would put the question squarely on the table whether or not he should be impeached.
I want to apologize to listeners. I lied to you when I told you Trump would win the election, and he did. I lied to you when I told you that they're admitting that fluoride's causing brain damage, and it turned out I was right. I lied to you about a global government existing that was trying to take control of our country, which they now admit is true.
Is this global governance at last? Is it one world, the central bankers in charge?
I guess, actually, I didn't lie to you. And I'm on air every day fighting the globalists as they try to shut down free speech in America, as they try to derail our recovery, as they try to fold us into their world government, open up our borders, hand us over to the Islamic Caliphate. But I'll tell you this, when I'm on air, I wear a sports jacket and a nice shirt because I respect the fact that you're tuning in and watching and listening to what I have to say. That we're involved in very, very important activities. And that's why I want to reach out to you right now and explain something that's so critical. And that if you grasp it, we'll be able to literally turn the tide even faster against the globalists. And it's just this. I'm not always wearing this, ladies and gentlemen. I dress like this to politically get messages out to folks that aren't awake, to spur debates, but to also meet like-minded people who are out there feeling like they're alone and don't know how many of us there are. It's like Martin Luther King said, it's all of us of one human race who all have incredible skills and gifts that God gave us that we bring together in the human family to do incredible things. A few months ago, I saw media demonizing folks that put up signs at universities that said, all lives matter. Then they demonized people that said, it's okay to be white. These are universities where they're saying it's inherently evil and an abomination and satanic to be white. Right outside Austin, Texas. Texas State University says that. Most major universities are directing this to create racial division in this country, and it's sickening. That's why I have designed with our crew several new limited edition t-shirts that expose this evil and fight true institutional, leftist-based racial division and classical race war designs. Yeah, if you're just talking about how you're white or how you're black, it's okay. That's fine to be proud of yourself. But isn't it really great to realize we all got red blood? That's why the shirt is in red. Out here in space together, the dark blue of the night sky, but all of our red blood together ties us together, and that's what makes us great. The globalists are creating a fake debate to turn us against each other. Let's come together and say all lives matter. The fact is, it's not just okay, it's great to be human. Let me show you a few of the other designs we've got. They're available at InfoWarsStore.com. They help spread the word and they help support the broadcast. A total win-win. This shirt is white. Whoa. And you've got major universities, major publications like BuzzFeed saying, is milk racist because it's white? So yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's a white shirt that says it's okay to be white, okay to be black, okay to be brown, but it's great to be human. Now here's a really racist shirt that Martin Luther King would agree with, but that the modern leftists would absolutely hate. It says all lives matter, and it exposes the institutional racism the left and Soros are bringing in to literally take minorities and turn them into the equivalent of brown Ku Klux Klan. This shirt is amazing, it's iconic, and it's limited edition. They're all available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. And despite the fact that all these shirts are super high quality and are destined to be bestsellers, through Christmas, we're offering 25% off at InfoWarsStore.com on these limited edition shirts.